First thing I want to talk about here is there were a lot of people who were pr- pretty upset, and I understand why, and I want to talk about it for a second. And I want to just since I guess you're here for my opinion. I'll give you my opinion on the situation. I'm not telling you to change your opinion. I'm not telling you the way to think, but I want to talk about this for a second. So one kind of common theme that we've seen from ARPG patches lately is, however you want to phrase it, broken promises, right? One example for EHG and Crafton, they said there's no additional monetization, and now we have paid classes coming. Blizzard said the tower is coming on the launch of the season, and now we're not getting the tower. Grinding Gear Games has said that this is the end game patch. They did make some end game changes, which are good, but in general, the majority of the end game stuff they announced is not coming in this patch. People are really mad. People have said we were supposed to get Druid last time. Now we're getting it this time, and the patch isn't very good. So all those things are perfectly valid things to be mad about. They say one thing and do another. Totally understand why people would be mad about that. I'm obviously not happy about it either. There is a phenomenon that happens, though. I sometimes talk to leadership in some of these different companies and actually other companies that aren't on this sheet. And a lot of times they are extremely hesitant to say anything to the community because of exactly this. Because when you don't deliver on this, and you don't deliver on this, and you don't deliver on this, people are mad. And so when people are mad, the one solution is just not to say anything, right? So, I would prefer that gaming companies give us information ahead of time as much as possible. Maybe, just stay away from completely promising that this feature is coming at this time if you aren't sure, of course, yada, yada, yada. But there is like a downside. People just say, well, it's simple, just keep your promises. Well, I mean, if you've ever lived on planet Earth before, sometimes things don't go as planned. And so I try my best not to just crucify them when something like this happens. And so what do I base my opinion on? I base my opinion on, well, what are the things that are coming? What are the season mechanics that are coming? And the stuff that you did change for either this particular patch and ongoing forward from the game, are you actually trying to make your game better? And besides the individual promises that you didn't deliver on. So, as an example, yesterday for Blizzard with the tower, it's not there. That's actually a big bummer. The magnitude and the quality of the changes for the game relative to what we've been getting were better. And I tried to call that out fairly, I believe. But for me, the reason why, in general, I am still very positive about this patch where other people are really pissed off is specifically this thing. The amount of changes that are coming here, I think, are pretty insane to advance the game. And even though I'm Mr. Endgame and I literally ask for this in every patch from every company ever since I started creating content, I don't mind waiting a few more months if you have a ton of other great changes. So, with that out of the way, that is why I am very favorable towards this patch. So now we can talk about what they all said in that whatever three-hour presentation or whatever it was. So the Druid is here. We all knew that was coming. It's an elemental caster and a shapeshifter. It's a strength int class. I believe it's the first strength int class in Path of Exile 2. So it's going to stack armor and energy shield. Energy shield has been a million times better than armor most of POE2's lifespan. They said in the stream that energy shield is coming down a little bit, although it will still be really strong. So the first thing that I think of when I see this is, all things held equal, we'll have to see how it shakes out. Probably going to lean into energy shield for staying alive. They have spells and attacks. And a lot of the ways that the Druid interacts is you cast a spell, then you shapeshift into a form, and then you do your shapeshifty stuff, and then you can power up the spells by doing different attacks in the shapeshifting form and doing different things with the different charges. The shape-shifting forms also have ultimate skills. So you can be a bear, they looked fire-based, they maul, they get endurance charges, they can use war cries, including war cries from other classes. And they had like a Bear Mageddon ultimate, and they seem to have this like enraged trample effect where they run around and just smash everything in the map. The werewolf is ice-based, does a bunch of slashes. You can summon a bunch of wolves. So you have like your wolf pack with you. And they had moon power ultimates. The wyvern is like the dragon, and it's lightning based, and it can rend. It devours corpses to gain power charges to get more power with the different attacks that they have. And it has ranged attacks. It can throw rolling magma and put like an oil or a sludge on them to blow them all up, and a bunch of different like lightning blasts. And their ultimate was like you actually fly in the air and do a fire breathing attack. In general, if you haven't seen, if you didn't watch the Druid, the cinematics for it looked amazing. Visually, it looks incredible, and they've been working on it for multiple years, so we expected that to happen. Looks to be one of the coolest classes by far, and it looks to be probably one of the most interesting to theory craft, because you will be using weapon swap. Like you will probably have a staff or a wand and an offhand to cast your spells, and then you just press a button to switch into your shape-shifting form. Probably is going to be the best way to play it rather than just doing one thing. There are spell meta gems now that can auto cast any spell that you want. For example, if you want it to auto cast Spark to just put shock on the whole map, you could do something like that. Seems pretty insane. Their ascendancies are Shaman, which is they had some different notables: spell damage per rage. They had generate rage continuously, and they can enhance runes and idols that you're currently using. Seems godly. Then the Oracle does a lot of interesting things where they like see visions of the battlefield, like they see visions of spells that you might cast. If you cast the spells that it shows you, then they get a huge damage increase, or it shows future visions of enemies, which allows you to, I guess, hit the enemy and the clone at the same time. I think that's how they explained it. Then they had a node called Unseen Path, which makes many, many more passive nodes, so you get a whole new tree that wasn't previously available to you. There is a third ascendancy coming, but it's launching with 2. The seasonal theme is the Val Temple with Etziri. I'll be completely honest with you. I've done almost every POE1 mechanic in depth for the like different endgame strategies. Val Temples is one of the ones that I do the least. I think most people who do them say that they can be okay, but in general, I don't think this is one of the most popular endgame mechanics in PoE1. The cool thing about the Val Temples is they allow you to double corrupt items, which is kind of like a super endgame thing to make like the most valuable items you could ever imagine. But I actually don't mind at all that this is the seasonal theme. A lot of people are saying, well, I can't believe they did this season theme because everybody doesn't really like Val Temples. But a lot of times when they have taken a previous mechanic, like Abyss, and they brought it into PoE2, they made it a lot better. So this might end up being a really awesome mechanic, and I'm not negative toward it at all, even though I haven't really dabbled in it much at all in PoE1. So you step onto beacons and you kill monsters to charge them up, and then you get to go into the temples. When you're a low level, there'll be a baby temple. It'll evolve into a gigantic mechanic by the end game. And then you can level up the rooms based upon how you plot out your temple to raise the challenges and the rewards. There's pinnacle fights. You can turn your character into RoboCop. You can get like robotic arms and limbs, which are a lot stronger, and they reset if you die. So if you die, you got to go back into the temple and turn yourself into RoboCop again. One thing that I think is going to happen with this seasonal theme is people that don't really like in-depth mechanics probably are not going to like this mechanic, because you are going to have to learn how to build your temple a certain way, probably for the highest rewards. But it is also the PoE community The PoE community, they solve everything. Like the Settlers of Calgar, for example, with the shipments, there's now spreadsheets out which just show you exactly what to do. And now the strategies get very simplified to just get giga rewards. I'm 100% certain that this will be solved very quickly. Of course, I'll do my part. I'll try to figure out as much as I can. So even if it seems really complicated in the beginning, there's going to be people who simplify it tremendously for you to get high rewards with little effort. So if you see this theme and it kind of makes you cringe because of that, we'll get it, if not completely solved, we'll get it figured out for you to make it easy on you very quickly. Abyss is going core. It's not going to be in every area, but you can add them to all of your maps in the endgame with tablets, and it has now its own tree in the endgame. Creating maps is much easier now. You don't have to do the tedious crafting. The tablets got buffed. I was going to pull up this real quick. This is the endgame feedback video that we made last league when they asked for endgame feedback. So I played it for 100 hours and made this sheet. No, I do not think that I'm the only one that gave this feedback. Tons of people did. No, I don't think Grinding Gear Games just does what I tell them to. Nothing like that. But we got tons of things that we asked for. The optimization in the game, they said, is way better, which was by far the most important thing. The permanent delirium fog has been fixed. Removing the elite icons, which we didn't want removed. They have a new system for that, which we'll talk about in a second. Some of the more in-depth endgame mechanics, which are coming next patch, which did not make it to this patch, are coming next league. So all this stuff in purple. They fixed a lot of things with the abyssal depths, and they fixed the terrible map creation process, which we just talked about. So even though the point in me bringing that up is, even though we aren't getting as many of the endgame changes that we wanted, this is supposed to be the endgame patch, they did do quite a few things already, and they said the next patch is going to be pretty sick. And the reason why I feel like this patch will be good enough is I think that this theme is going to be pretty in-depth to figure out. I think the Druid class looks sick, but even when they do things like this, when they rebalance 90 skills and they add 230 new passives, I think 230 new passives is bigger than some of the other ARPGs, like entire passive trees, if you just add them up. I think this is like more than an entire game's worth of new passives. So the theory crafting is absolutely there. The optimization, they said, is significantly better. They said at a minimum, you'll get 25% more frames, but in a lot of cases, you'll actually get double. They also rebalanced all of the ascendancies. So one more time, going back here, the reason why I'm positive, I'm not happy, of course, that we didn't get our endgame patch, but I feel like the magnitude of what we have gotten here is quite high. Then we go to the Q&A. I want to say this every time because people got mad at me last time. This is my interpretation of the questions that were asked and the answers that were given. It's not a direct copy of what they said. The first question was, is the Druid powerful? Because the damage numbers they were doing 17 damage in the video, and people said it looked weak, even though it looked cool. And they said, yes, it's very OP. Don't worry about the damage in the video. Can the shapeshifters dodge roll? Yes, they each have their own dodge roll. Can other classes equip the talisman, which is the main weapon that you use as a druid to transform in your other slot? Yes, it's just a weapon type. So warriors can transform into a druid if they want. Are the druids going to utilize weapon swaps? Yes. In one hand, use the talisman, and then whatever for the other side, probably a staff, so you can cast your spells. Do the Val temples ever get completely reset when you run them, when you kill the pinnacle boss? No, but if you kill it Ziri, they significantly change. So the temple will be constantly changing for you, but it won't permanently reset. So will people purposely leave your temple fully built but not finish it? And they said, yes, that'll probably be a very endgame play. If you already have all the drops from the Uber boss, then you would probably leave your temple built so you can just keep farming it for massive rewards. It's probably an endgame strategy. Can you stack multiple temple runs? Yes, you can in the endgame. Are you itemizing the temples? So in Path of Exile 1, you would build a really valuable temple, and then you would sell it to somebody to go use the double corruption altar. They said, no, we're not doing that. They didn't even like it in PoE POE1 either. It was just a band-aid solution. You're going to run your own temples. Are double corrupts different in POE2? They said they're meant to be used on already corrupted items, which actually, the way I think about it is that'll probably make it more difficult to use because you have to land the corruption and then you get to go double corrupt it. Whereas in the other game, you can just YOLO a double corrupt on a mage blood, for example, right? And they said things like sometimes, like if a certain item has multiple bad affixes, it could turn up to 2 downsides into 2 godly upsides, changing an item from 1 divine into 300, which would be obviously an insane moment for anybody if that happens to you. Where is the third way of ascending? It's not ready to be released yet. And from the sound of how they were talking about it, it doesn't seem like it's close. Why did they change the waystone crafting? Well, because people hated it, right? We put it in our endgame feedback video that creating a map takes all of these steps and people hate it. They agreed it was dumb. So they shifted the crafting to making the tablets, which have many, many uses. And they're not going to bake multiplicative power into maps anymore with the seasons, so the problem doesn't come back. Instead, the seasonal mechanics will just have their own unique rewards. This entire process and change for it, I think, is amazing. Definitely the right move. What are the current problems with the endgame? I guess I should have wrote a lot more here. They talked about this for a long time. I guess there were a million problems, but one of them they said is there aren't clear goals on what you should be doing. Are there future updates coming to the endgame Atlas tree? They said yes, they have like a completely significant new idea for how to do the endgame Atlas tree that they're not ready to share yet. So like in POE1, it has the Pokemon system, right? Where you have to catch them all. You have to catch all 135 maps. It works pretty well, honestly, but they said they have a brand new idea and it's coming. I'm guessing it's in 0.5. It was probably supposed to be in this patch, but they ran out of time. Speaking of that, why didn't the endgame patch hit? It was far more work than they anticipated, and they didn't have a way to scale down what they were doing and implement that, so they just had no choice but to push it back. Another change that they made is they said that the scaling of... So for monsters in the endgame currently, what they do is in the lower maps, they don't give you very many monsters. And then as you get higher, you get more monsters and they kind of swarm you. But now, instead of doing that, now they just scale the monsters. They give you more XP, they give you more loot, but they're also tougher. Like they get more life and maybe more damage as well. So, because they're making that change, the question was, what about the people that liked playing against all those swarming monsters? And they said they're working on a method where you can choose either or in the future. Like you could convert that difficulty that happens into pack size instead. So you will be able to choose which one you want in the future. What about removing the rare monster icons? People got mad when they removed them. The new mechanic is once you've found every checkpoint, all icons will unlock, not just rare monsters. So you will also get the icons for all the league mechanics, where the bosses are, where the rogue exiles are, anything interesting will automatically be shown to you. Some people were not very happy with that. They don't think that's a good solution. And they said it's fine. If people hate it, they will change it. But again, so now the idea is just play the map normally. Hopefully you hit all the checkpoints. When you hit that, it'll unlock all the icons. If you don't hit all the checkpoints, then it's your decision. Do you want to run back where you haven't been and look for the other checkpoint or not? Does it feel good? Does it feel bad? Well, we'll give them feedback. And they said, well, they'll change it if it sucks. The passive tree in POE2 is weaker than in POE1. Was this a conscious decision? And what that means is more of your power comes from weapons and gear in POE2 than it does in POE1. Did they mean to do that explicitly? They said not really, but they wanted the tree to solve how does your character play and interact with the gear itself, but they might have overcooked it. So in general, I feel that way. I feel like the passive tree, as I played POE2 now, is weaker than the gear, and I feel like the ascendancies aren't nearly as powerful as they are in POE1. For example, when I'm playing POE1 and I ascend into a Hierophant, I get 4 of all the charges. And those charges are super powerful. That's like an amazing ascendancy node that you click right away. Like Slayer has Overleech, for example, or there's a lot of different other examples. So they are aware that essentially that the tree and the ascendancies might be too weak in PoE2 right now. Why does Energy Shield have a lot of scaling on the tree when life doesn't? They said it's just a current imbalance. They're working on it. I think they said overall Energy Shield is coming down this league, but it'll still probably be the best option. Do you think it's not worth it to balance things now with so many things still not released? They said it's not that, it's just a timing thing. They just have a million things to do, but they did change their balancing team from 2 people to 5. So balance, you would think would be better going forward. We're not going to have 60% of people playing Lightning Arrow Deadeye for 1 league. Is there a problem with plus skills in the game being too powerful? They said essentially something is off, they're looking at it. Is there a problem with weapon progression? They said yes, like you'll have a bow that does like 30 to 50 damage, and then the next best bow as you keep going might do like 25 to 45 damage, but it'll have 1 additional arrow as one example. They said like they would do interesting things where the next weapon would give you an implicit, but you'd lose damage. But then people had to like figure out which one was actually better, and it wasn't worth it. And losing damage always feels bad. So they're going to fix the progression of the weapons. Where is the team with rarity on gear? They said they argue about it every 3 months, and they have nerfed the magnitude that you get in this patch, but eventually they're going to remove rarity on gear with better mods once they have good mods to replace it with. Lightning damage seems too strong. They agreed, and they said a bunch of little changes are coming in this patch, not just to nerf lightning damage, but buff the other elements. Was Abyss crafting too strong? They said some pieces of it were, but overall, adding the crafting to the game was much better than what they had. They said, are you going to add hot swapping between controller and mouse and keyboard? They said, not this time, even though they promised it would be this time. But they said they made it much further along, should definitely be in the next patch. When is your full release date? They said, not 2027, 2026 sometime. But then they said they hope. They just said releasing the game was much more difficult than they initially thought. So, for me, I'm very favorable toward this. I think the Druid looks absolutely sick. I think there's 1,000 different ways to build it. A lot of the things that I asked for in the end game, a lot of the quality of life stuff is here. So I'll give them a pass for not giving it this being the end game patch. I think the ascendancies look good. I think the seasonal theme, I think it will be a lot of fun probably when we start to figure it out. Probably randomly plugging the rooms and not getting too much because we're playing inefficiently will probably feel bad in the beginning. But I think once we figure it out, it'll probably be pretty good. And I think all the new passive trees, I tried to go in there and tried to even theory craft what a druid tree would look like. But that section of the passive tree is just such a disaster. So they're redoing it and adding all these new ones. I think it's going to make it so much better. So overall, I'm feeling pretty good about this. I don't think this is the most unbelievable patch I've ever seen from Grinding Gear games, but I'm feeling pretty good about it.